All right. Hello there, everyone. This is Leon Dale. Today, I just want to go over a prototype I was creating. I was unable to integrate bloodstains into one of the games I was working on. And because of that difficulty, I decided to do a prototype so I don't have to worry about the rest of the game getting in the way and creating errors. I can build what I need to prove that it can be built and that the code that I use to build it works. So anyway, enough pontification. Let's dive in. Okay, first of all, we got our function love.load. And a little comment down below that says specifically, this won't work if other files you require have the love.load function. So when I click run to run this program, love.load as a function will be called automatically. So if I have that love.load in my player.lua, in the tab that the tab that is all about the player, it'll just see it as a function. It won't run that function. It will cause problems. So that little comment will get rid of that error, which is very difficult for me to find. And instead, when we do call another tab, we never have the love.load or even player.load or bullet.load. It's just not needed. So I'm going to go kind of in order here. The first thing we got is enemy. But I will confess, enemy is simply the player file with a few minor changes. So let's look at player.lua, as that is in our program. That was the first thing that is called that will work in our understanding. Here goes. So up the top here, we create a table for our player with the player variables. Player x-axis is 0, player y-axis is 0, player speed is 1. Down here in the player updates, all we really do is assign the ASWAD keys to movements. If you're new to this, I'll go over one of these and you can see what the rest is. But if love.keyboard is down and it's the D button being pushed down, then player X equals player X plus player speed. Player X equals player X plus 1. And if, and then there's an end. You could do else if, which would work as well, probably better and smarter, but this is what I have presently. And then we have if love.keyboard A is down, then player X equal player X minus 1 player speed. And the same for your y-axis going up and down. That's all we're doing to update our player. Then in player draw, we set the color to cyan. This is RGB, and it doesn't go from 0 to 255 as one would assume. It goes from 0 to 1, and that means that half power is 0.5, quarter power 0.25 instead of going up and down towards 255. And then we love.graphics draw a rectangle, which is a filled rectangle at player X, at player Y, that is 50 by 50. Now we go back to main. Enemy is called before player. And our enemy.lua is the same as the player.lua. We have our enemy table, which has an X and Y axis. The enemy speed is 2. Down here, we don't even use the enemy speed. We just say enemy X equals enemy X plus 0.25. So it's going to move slowly across the screen. And that is the only thing. And I used to have the enemy controlled by the left, right, and arrow keys. But then I decided I wanted it to be an autonomous enemy. And thus, it's just going to mosey on across the screen, rat slow like. Now, at the very end, all we do is change our color to white, which is everything at full blast, RGB at full blast. And we're going to draw a rectangle. It's going to be an outline. It's going to be at enemy X, enemy Y. It's going to be 50 by 50. So not very different from our player dot lure. Next up in our main is bullets. Now, I confess I cannot explain to you everything succinctly because I am still actually learning. I forgot my little preamble to say that I'm not telling you these things because I'm an expert or a teacher. I am learning and I'm simply creating videos whilst I take that journey in the hopes that somebody will see this who needed it the way that I needed it. I need people to run through their crappy code and just talk about why you do it like that? How come this is like that? And though I can't do it completely, this is my effort to give back in that respect. So in the bullet tab, we create a bucket of bullets. Bullets plural is the bucket, okay? And eventually we will spawn a bullet and put that bullet in the bucket. I should change this to the word buckets. But okay, when you hear the word bullets in plural, think of that as an ammo container with all your bullets inside of it. Next we have function, player, mouse, angle. Again, I can't explain this 100%, but it's going to return to us the results when it uses mathatan. That's the part that I can't 100% explain. But player.y minus love.mouse get y. And that is the mouse. So player x minus love.mouse.get x. And then plus math pi. The math pi and the player atan confuse me slightly. I know what they're supposed to do, but I don't know how and why it affects the rest. Math is not my strong point. But what I do know is that the function is going to, when it returns this, it's going to be used as an angle, right? And the angle that's being calculated here is between the player and the mouse. This love mouse get y is get the y-axis of the mouse. So the bullet will shoot, once I use a player mouse angle as its direction, will shoot between the player and the mouse. That is what this line does. And I know how to manipulate this to make the enemy shoot towards the player. I haven't done it yet, but I'm fairly certain I can make it happen. So moving on, function, bullets update, how we update it. Now I'm not going to go all the way through it. Again, I'll get confused and stumble trying to explain that which I am not fully understanding in. But what's important is these comments that I have written. This governs bullet movement. And here what it does for index bullet in I pairs bullets do. So go through my bucket of bullets, and for each bullet in the bullets bucket, do this, which is bullet x equals bullet x plus math.cosine. And again, I know what cosine is, I know what sine and cosine are, but I don't understand how they're truly being used here. But then b direction, bullet direction, and multiplied by bullet speed. Now our bullet hasn't been defined yet, which it will in a moment. But this is our movement. This is our movement, okay? It's gonna keep going in the direction that we have defined. And our spoiler, player mouse angle is going to be bullet direction. So there's a little insight there. This next bit of code checks to see if bullet is beyond the screen and removes the bullet if true. Again, for index equals the number of bullet in bullets. 1, I can't remember what that 1 means, but -1 means we're going to begin from the bottom of that table and not the top. The top would be the first bullet, second bullet, third bullet, and then we want to start removing them. or something. So there you go. Local bullet equals bullet index. If bullet, so here you go. Here's where you can understand what this is trying to do. It goes through the table of bullets. And it looks at each one, each bullet inside a table called bullets, and it says if the bullet x-axis is less than 0, that's over here, or if the bullet y-axis is less than 0, that's over here, I believe, at the top, or if b.x is greater than love.graphics.getWidth, and this means get the width of the screen. And if our bullet x-axis is greater than the width of the screen, that will be over here, or if the bullet y-axis is greater than love.graphics get height, which is the height of this here screen, and that's going to be around about here, then remove from the table called bullets I, and I equals the number of bullets in the table, the number of bullet in bullets. I made this video before, and so I'm getting a little confused as to whether I've mentioned certain metaphors before, but when I think about the bullets, I think about the bullets as a bucket, and the bullet goes in the bucket. And this idea, this metaphorical idea of a container being filled up with what you're spawning, be it enemies or bullets, makes it a lot easier to read the code. I did bullet in bullets because that's how I learned, that's how I was taught. And I might even do a video on the guy I learned from, because his course was amazing. A lot of times people say, don't waste your time with courses, and you can learn for yourself online for free. And there's a lot to be said for that. But Kyle, I don't want to say his last name because I'm not going to pronounce it right. But Kyle, I took his lesson on YouTube, and I paid for his Udemy course. And that is why I was able to really, really get into this deep down and feel accomplished, and build some games and get some true understanding. I'll do a video about that guy another time. Let's move on here. After that, it's going to search that same table, that bucket of bullets, right? And I equals, this means the number of items in bullets, which, how many bullets are in bullet. And we're going to go through there, and if we find any bullet where dead equals true, then we will remove from the table called bullets our bullet. And that's what it will do. This will remove bullets once they're considered dead, and that should happen upon collision. Okay. Now the fire bullet code. Love.mousepress X, Y, B, and is touch are the arguments that we are passing in to this function here. And because is touch is there, when I open this thing on my Surface Pro, my touch screen, I can tap the screen and it'll spawn a bullet. But B is button on your mouse, and B1 is your left click, B2 is your right click. So if B1, if B equals to 1, then spawn a bullet. And we haven't defined this function spawn bullet yet. We shall soon. Come down here. We got a function, bullet drawer. This goes for index bullet in IPairs bullets. This goes through our bucket of bullets, and for each one it draws a filled little square at bullet X, bullet Y, which is 10 by 10. That's all it draws. And then down here, the last thing on this little tab, we spawn our bullet finally. A table called bullet. So this table contains our X and Y axis, our speed, direction, and whether we are dead or not. This bullet and its defined attributes will end up inside of this bullet table. If we were able to play this game and print bullets, as we click, you'll see those bullets populating the list. Every time we click the button that spawns a bullet, the bullet list, the list of attributes, and the bullet and all of its traits go into the bullets. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. So anyway, if you look down here, our bullet X and Y equals the player X and Y, so that our bullet will originate from the player. However, the square or the circle or the image is actually drawn from the top left-hand corner. So a box like this, our draw spot 0, 0 is right here. It's right there. And what you should do is say that the bullet X, its origin point, should be player width divided by 2, half of the player's width. And if you're half of the player's width and half of the player's height, you will be centralized within that player. You'll be centralized within that object. I haven't done that here because this is just a prototype, but if you're doing your game for real, yes, you would end up offsetting that origin point, offsetting most everything you do so that it will be centralized in your character and not at the top left-hand corner. Our bullet speed is 5. Our bullet direction is the player mouse angle, which is where at the top with Mathatan 2, where we calculate the angle that exists between the player and the mouse, wherever that mouse be pointing, that's what this angle is, bullet direction. And then, is our bullet dead? False. It isn't dead. And then the last sentence, the most important line here, is after all the attributes are defined for our object called bullet, we insert into our bullets table our bullet. Every time we click that button, this bullet here goes into bullets. Now, next in our main is enemy bullets. And enemy bullets is pretty much the same. The only differences are that over here, I'm going to change the enemy mouse angle to be between the enemy and the player. And see this here, I could just make this, should I do that now? Just shouldn't mess with it now, should I? I don't know. Let's just take a look and see if we can make a quick change. I shouldn't do this, but okay, so here we go. There's our enemy. He's moving along. As remember, we talked about how it's just going to move slowly. And then I shoot, bam, hits him, he shoots a bullet, he drops a red egg. Red egg. That red egg symbolizes our blood stain. The bullets that he's spitting out, those purple bullets, this is just a way for me to make him feel automated, that when you shoot him, he shoots back. He's not even shooting at the player right now. When we shoot him, he jumps back a little bit. That's about collisions. We haven't got there yet. So what I'm going to do is, when we shoot him, he does shoot at a weird angle, but it's not the right one. So here, I'm going to just try player.x. If we spell it right, it might be better. And then here, player.y. Player.y, control S. Play. Oh, womp, 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 womp. And it's saying, oh, I see. I forgot, I removed the bracket there. Control S to save. Here we go. Now when I shoot it, it should shoot right back at me. It didn't do that at all. Not at all. It just shot. It looks like it's shooting at the angle somehow 180 away. So that didn't work. That didn't work. But that's all right. It doesn't matter. It's a prototype. It's not the point right now. It's dropping red eggs, which means the bloodstained prototype works. Yeah, we will fix that bullet though. It is interesting to note, whilst I'm at this moment of abject failure, that the angles in love2d are in radians and not in degrees. So when you saw that bullet shooting down, you're thinking, dude, it looks almost right, It just needs to be flipped 180. But we're not thinking in degrees. There is a way to convert degrees into radians, but since I have no idea what radians look like at all, I haven't done my research on that, I want to stay away from them. We're just going to move on. So enemy bullets updates is almost exactly the same as our player bullets. I did have it so that when I press space, the enemy would shoot a bullet, but then I started, I wanted my enemy to be more autonomous, and that's why I got it to shoot back when you shoot it. And once I get it to shoot correctly, I might put a little timer on there, but like I say, it's not exactly the point of what's going on right now. When we draw the bullet, we draw it exactly like we do for the bullets.lua for our player, except I use an outline and a slightly different color. Then at the bottom here again, spawn enemy bullet. We create a list or table containing the attributes that enemy bullet contains, which is your x-axis, your y-axis, your speed, your direction, which is A. Why does that say minus? Because that's how I was trying to flip it in the first place. And then enemy bullet is dead. And then you take this bullet that you have just defined and just spawned, and you put that enemy bullet into enemy bullets. Now I've just pressed Control S to see if you're moving that minus from my enemy angle. Bam! There. Oh! Now it's shooting right at me, which is exactly what it's supposed to do. I had tried to do this earlier, and I had put a minus right here in front of enemy mouse angle to flip it, hoping that would work. And now I removed it. Bam, it's shooting right at me now. Don't shoot me, dog. Don't shoot me, dog. So now that it's shooting right at me, that wasn't even the point, but bravo to me, I got it done. So enemy bullets and bullets. Save these differences. So now back to main, we got collisions. So this function I got from the internet, and it's very simple looking, but at the same time very complex looking. I can't go through it all. I tried earlier and got really muddled. But all you really need to know that it's at this point in time, whilst I can't explain it to you properly, is that it's checking the X and Y axis and saying, well, if the enemy overlaps, then we call it true. Things are overlapping, and then this will respond as true. The big thing to take away from this, for me at least, this part here, you read it and really take time to understand. It's actually more simple than it seems. But when we create the function check collision, we create these arguments to be filled in. And so when we call check collision, where it says x1, that would be player.x. Y1, player.y. W1, player.width. H1, player.height. And then X2, enemy. Oh, let's just go with bullet, shall we? Bullet.x. You see how this is going? Y2, bullet.y. Width 2, W2, bullet.width. And then H2, bullet.height. Now, when you call this, it will run through the program here and return whether it's true or false. This looks complex, but where it says X1 here and you've entered player X, wherever you see X1 will be replaced with player X. And then where it says player Y, and you've got your Y1 here, wherever it is Y1, it will be replaced by player.y. That's important to know. If you call this thing and do what I did at first and put X1, Y1, H1, that's not going to work. This is saying these are the values you need to supply in this order, and they will be placed inside of this algorithm, and we will return whether a collision is true or false. If you don't understand, it's because I can't explain it correctly. If you do understand, great. Let's move on. In collision update, it basically goes through all the bullets in our bullet bucket and checks to see if the bullet collides with the enemy. And if it does, then we go love, get rid of this, love.graphics.print collision. This doesn't work for many reasons. And then we call bloodstain spawn. We spawn a little blood egg, and we knock back the enemy by 50, and then spawn an enemy bullet. As you see, when we shoot it, it shoots back. The only other thing to point out that's interesting about this is that when you do check for this collision, we don't seem to have to say if check collision equals true. By just saying if check collision with all of its arguments, it's already assumed that I'm trying to say if it's true. If it was false, I would say if not check collision, or if check collision equals false. But I've seen a lot of times that when people want to say if something is true, they don't even put the true. They just say if variable name or if function name, and they don't put the word true. So this actually, though the word true doesn't show up, it is actually saying if check collision returns true, then perform these tasks. And that brings us to our very last tab, which is the bloodstains. I used the same method that we did with the bullets. I create a bucket of blood called bloodstains. We have a variable called blood call. This was to prevent a strange error. We'll talk about that in a bit. Function bloodstain spawn. This is where we spawn the bloodstain, and we have a table that represents the attributes of the object known as blood. Its X and Y axis are the same as the enemy X and Y. So the blood originates at the enemy X and Y. Now, if you remember, I was talking about when you have that square, right, the origin point where it begins drawing from is right here, which is why when we shoot at the enemy, the bloodstain seems to happen at the top of the square, top hind end of the square, which is where enemy X and Y actually are. And if I wanted that bloodstain not to be at the top of his head, but the central at his body, then I would go ahead and calculate the width and the height, divide them both by 2 to get the middle point of our enemy. Again, this is a prototype, so it's not that big of a deal. Blood lifespan equals 100. I wanted the lifespan to disappear. And as I said that out my mouth, I looked down and recognized I made an error over here. Blood lifespan starts out at 100. Blood called equals 1. After we spawn our first blood, then blood called equals 1. And this solves some sort of error that was happening. And then we take our blood and add it to the table called bloodstains. And just like we did with the bullets. Down here in function bloodstain update, we call and check our collisions. We check to make sure that a collision has or has not happened. If it has happened, it's going to do all the things that collision says should happen. And if blood call has already been called, then the blood lifespan equals blood lifespan minus 1, counts down. And if the blood lifespan gets to 0, then remove that bloodstain. And this attempts to remove the first bloodstain that happened, the oldest bloodstain. That's what this is meant to be. And then if blood lifespan is equal to 0, and we remove it from the table, we reset it to 500, it should be reset to 100, which is why the first bloodstain always disappears quick, and then I'm like, why are the rest taking so long to make that change right here, right now? Control S to save. And then when we draw our bloodstain in our function bloodstain drawer, we go through the table looking at each bloodstain, each blood in our bloodstains, set the color to red, draw a little circle with a radius of 10, and it's going to be filled and not an outline at blood X and blood Y, and then we're going to revert the color back to black so it doesn't affect anything that comes afterwards. And that's it. That is it. We called all these guys, got all of our variables and the like, and then in our love.update, we updated everything. And what I'm trying to do is, at some point, it's in the tab here if you'll open, I was slowly moving all of our requirements into a requirement tab, a requirement file. Then I was going to name a function called get globals or get me requires. And then in main love.load, all it would say was, you know, get globals as a function, and that would call the page and all my requirements. Same thing with the updates. I'm going to do an update tab. The reason I haven't done that now is because I'm successful in my endeavor to create a prototype for blood. And down here, here's all of our drawers too. I love saying that. Down here in the drawers is where we draw the bullets. Player is drawn, enemy is drawn, bullet is drawn, enemy bullet is drawn, bloodstains are drawn. Let's take a look at our at my prototype one last time. There he goes, he's moving. Fire, bang. Now it moves. Now the blood disappears a little quicker. It doesn't go 500, so that's great. And now the enemy actually shoots at me, which is good. And all I would do is take this circle and make it a PNG of a blood splatter, and maybe even do something like scale it up, make the blood splatter 0 scale, and when it is applied, scale it up quickly so it goes splat. You know what I mean? Something like that. But this just proves, this is the simplest possible way to prove I can make a bloodstain show up, and I can make that bloodstain disappear within X amount of time, and I can get my enemy to shoot at me. And this bullet here, how it keeps knocking him back multiple times, that is because here in collisions, we have a lot of things that happen if the collision does happen, but what we don't have is spawns enemy bullet. We want somehow the bullet to be dead. So bullet dot dead. Did I call it bullet dot dead? Let's take a look at my bullets and my bullet dot dead. Okay, just like I thought. Bullet dot dead equals true. Strange, in love2d, true has got to be lowercase, but in Python, true and false have got to be capitalized. Go figure. So now that I've said that the bullet should equals dead when the collision happens, it should get removed once it's shot at oh, bam, there you go, it did it. So now the bullet disappears when it hits that enemy instead of sticking around. And really, there's not much more else to do here. It's been proven I can accomplish all these things. Now what would happen is I would take what I have learned, take the code that I know works here, and integrate that into the main game so I can finally have bloodstains and get enemies to shoot at the player. And all these things that I've learned here, I can now apply to any game that I create. Why I wanted to show it to you today. I know this is an exceptionally long video, but I do hope that some of you stuck around to the end. Yo, if you did stick around to this moment in time, please type in the comments below, player for real. True player for real. Capitalize your T, because we're moving to Python right soon. And I'm gonna get on out of here. I've talked a lot. I love the sound of my own voice, but I'm now sick of it. So, man, I had a lot of fun creating this, working on this, struggling with this, and now explaining this. This has been highly satisfying, challenging, and rewarding. And I hope you feel the same way too. And if you got some games you're working on, you want to show me, comment below, man. Especially you're going to show me the code. I want to see what everyone else is doing out there. Anyway, thank you and have a great day.